The Columbia Network takes pleasure in presenting Orson Welles in the Mercury Theatre on air in the second of a unique new summer series of 9 dramatic productions, the first time in its history that radio has brought to the country an entire theatrical institution. Columbia is proud to welcome Orson Welles to its roster of stars and to give him the opportunity of bringing to the air those same qualities of vitality and imagination that have made him the most talked of theatrical director in America today.
Good evening. This is Orson Welles speaking. If there's anything bloodthirstier than a werewolf, it's a pirate. And the Mercury Theatre is playing safe. Now, if vampires and their ilk leave you as uncannily cold as old Dracula himself, who was staked down firmly and, it is to be hoped, permanently in his own family plot last week, then there are figures to prove that you are susceptible to be buried treasure. We calculate that no decent law-abiding citizen is immune to pirates. There are cowboys and Indians, there are gangsters and G-men. But these delights are inconsistent, like the short skirt. I don't care how young you are. Nothing charms, nothing ingratiates, nothing wins like a one-legged, double-barreled buccaneer with earrings, a handkerchief on his head, and a knife in his teeth. What could be more appropriate on the starboard rail of your four-masted brigantine? If you haven't a four-masted brigantine, you have Treasure Island. It's in your library because it's a great English classic, and this evening, because it's a great story, it's on your radio. That's what I mean by playing safe. Once there was a small boy who asked his stepfather, who had written a number of books, please to write something interesting. The stepfather, seeing his point immediately, contributed a serial to something repugnant called Young Folks, a periodical circulated among the section of the English nation known as Tiny Tots, who were very prevalent in the 80s. The name of the serial was The Sea Cook, by Captain George North. And if Tiny Tots didn't think it was interesting, they should have been boiled in oil. The story was begun, the stepfather says, on a chill September morning by the cheek of a brisk fire and the rain drumming on the window. The small boy himself helped a lot, even though the Captain North got the credit, and so did a third and equally incurable small boy, the author's father. They drew a map first, a chart of an island showing very queer and wonderful attractions, Spyglass Shoulder, for instance, and Skeleton Island, and the North Cache with the bar silver. And then, on that chill September morning, by that brisk fire of theirs, the 3 plotters buried their plunder, doubloons and louis d'or, gold and silver, and rich jewels and pieces of 8. That's why the story was finally called Treasure Island.
It's foolish to guess who's tuned in on this broadcast. But if in some way, well, we who are retelling this story hope devoutly that he, who the Samoans laid to rest in the hills of their own faraway Treasure Island, and who is still known out there only as the great teller of tales, would not wish to not as he did, so unaccountably at first, to suppress the real name of Captain George North. The small boy, of course, should have been decorated. It is a better world because he asked for something interesting. But then he was lucky. There are millions and millions of small boys, but only one of us had Robert Louis Stevenson for a stepfather. Treasure Island by Robert Louis Stevenson, with Orson Welles as Long John Silver and as Jim Hawkins, who tells the story, Treasure Island. Squire Trelawney, Dr. Livesey, and the rest of the gentlemen having asked me to write down the whole particulars about Treasure Island from the beginning to end, keep nothing back with the bearings of the island, and that only because there is treasure not yet lifted. I take up my pen in the year of grace 1783 and go back to that time 19 years ago when my father kept the Admiral Benbow Inn and the brown old seaman with the saber cut first up his lodging under our roof. I was 14, but I remember him as if it were yesterday.
"15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho ho.
Jim!
And a bottle of rum."
Mother called me from upstairs.
Jim!
Yes, Mother.
Jim, there's a man coming up the road. Go out and see what he wants.
Drinks and the devil have done for the rest. Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
He came plodding to the inn door, his sea chest following behind him on a hand-barrow. A tall, strong, heavy, nut-brown man, his terry pigtail falling over the shoulders of his soiled blue coat, his hands ragged and scarred with black, broken nails, and the sabre cut across one cheek, a dirty, livid white, singing that old sea song that he sang so often afterwards.
Yo ho ho, and a bottle of rum. Ha ha ha. Open up in there!
Yes, sir?
What do you call this place?
The Admiral Benbow Inn, sir.
Admiral Benbow. Ah, nice. Lonely looking. Pleasant city, say, the grog shop. Folks don't come here much, do they, boy? Not much company.
No, sir. More's the pity.
No? Well, then, it's birth for me. I'm a plain man. Rum, bacon, eggs, all I want, and that head up there for what ships off. I've a mind to stay here a bit. Here, you matey, you with the wheelbarrow. Bring up alongside, help my chest. You too, boy, it's heavy.
Yes, sir.
Call me Captain, boy, Captain.
Yes, Captain.
Just one thing more.
Yes, Captain.
You ain't seen him, have you?
No, sir. What do you mean?
Along the road, maybe? You might have seen him somewhere. You can't tell. Let me know if you do, boy. A seafaring man.
Yes, sir.
With one leg.
Yes, sir.
Captain!
Yes, Captain.
Bring my noggin, old rum boy!
And so he came to live under our roof. We never knew his name. We called him the Captain. He was a very silent man by custom. All day he hung around the cove or up on the cliffs with a brass telescope, staring out to sea. All evening he sat in a corner of the parlor next to the fire and drank rum and water, very strong. And every day when he came back from his stroll, we'd ask the same question.
Jim.
Yes, Captain?
Any seafaring man go by today along the road?
No, Captain.
And Jim?
Yes, sir?
You're a good boy, Jim. Ye wouldn't lie to me ever, would you, Jim?
No, sir.
Ye haven't seen him, have you, Jim? Jim, there's a silver fourpenny for you on the first of every month if you'll keep your weather eye open for your seafaring man. With one leg. Let me know the moment you see him, won't you? Jim, a seafaring man with one leg. How that personage hunted my dreams, oh stormy nights, when the wind shook the four corners of the house and the surf roared along the cove and up the cliffs. I could see him in 1,000 forms. Now the leg would be cut off at the knee, now at the hip. Now he was a monstrous kind of creature who never had but one leg, and that in the middle of his body. You'll keep your weather eye open, won't you, Jim? For the seafaring man with one leg, a seafaring man with one leg.
Months went by. The captain bade farewell to ruin us, for he kept on staying week after week, month after month.
And never a penny of money, Jim. Not a penny has he paid us since the day he came here. And me, a poor widow woman.
Mother, why don't you ask him for some?
Well, I'll tell you the truth, Jim. I'm afraid to ask him. I'm afraid of the man. Now, if your father was alive...
In all that time, none of us ever saw him open the great sea chest that was in his room. There were nights when he took a deal more rum and water than his head could carry.
15 men, and the dead man's just yo ho ho ho, and a bottle of rum.
Often I have heard the house shaking and all neighbors joining in for dear life.
Drink, and the devil I've done for the rest. Yo ho, and a bottle of rum. Quiet in the midships. Quiet! He would force them all to listen to... Wait.
He would force them all to listen to his stories. Dreadful stories they were, about hanging and walking the plank and storms at sea and the dry Tortugas and wild deeds and places on the Spanish Main. By his own account, he must have lived his life among some of the wickedest men that God ever allowed upon the sea. The captain had...
The captain had been living with us almost a year when there occurred the first of the mysterious events that rid us at last of his presence. It was one January morning, very early, a pinching, frosty morning. The captain had risen earlier than usual and sat down the beach with his telescope under his arm. My mother was upstairs, and I was laying the breakfast table against the captain's return when the parlor door opened and a stranger stepped in.
Sonny, come here, Sonny. Is this table for my mate Bill?
I don't know your mate, Bill. I'm laying this for a man who stays in the house. We call him the captain.
Well, my mate Bill would be called the captain, like as not. Now, we'll put it, for argument like that, your captain's got a cut on one cheek, and we'll put it, if you like, that cheek's the right one, eh? But of course, save me, there he is now. There's my mate Bill. That's him, with a spyglass under his arm, bless his old heart, to be sure. You and me'll just get back behind the door, Sonny, and we'll give Bill a little surprise. We will. Bless his heart, I says again.
15 men on the dead man's chest. Yo ho, yo ho. Hello, Bill. Come, Bill. You knows me. You know as an old shipmate, Bill, surely.
Black Dog, as ever was. Eh, Bill, Bill? We've seen a sight of times, us two. So you've run and see me down. Here I am. Speak up. What is it?
That's you, Bill. You're in the right of it, Billy. I'll have a glass of rum from this dear child here, what I've took such a liking to, and we'll sit down, if you please, and talk square like old shipmates. Sit down, Bill. And you, Sonny, get aft.
Yes, sir.
And none of your keyholes on me, you hear?
For a while, I could hear nothing but a low gabbing. Suddenly, the voices began to grow higher.
No, and at the end of it, if it comes to swinging, swing all day, say I. Fight, chairs and...
I saw Black Dog, streaming blood, run off down the road. Presently, the captain returned, alone.
Jim, give me some rum.
Captain, are you hurt?
I must get away from here. Get away. That's what I must get away from here.
What's happened, Jim? What's happened?
It's the captain, Mother.
The captain? Oh, dearie me. What a disgrace. I've been afraid of something like this ever since he came into the house with that old chest of his.
I got the rum and tried to put it down his throat, but his teeth were tightly shut and his jaws were strong as iron. An hour later, our friend Dr. Livesey came.